Good evening from Swansea, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling, insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. Today is Sunday Funday, and we're going to be doing our own version of BBC's Room 101 show, with our contestants arguing why their wrestling pet peeves should be locked away in Room 101. The rules are very, very simple. Each contestant pitches one thing in wrestling that they hate and argue why it should be locked away forever. And after discussion, I will decide if it goes in Room 101. Joining me today, firstly, Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
I'm doing well. Happy Sunday, everyone. I'm stoked to be here. This is a fun concept. It's funny, when I woke up this morning, I was a little confused, watched a little bit of tape, and now I'm really excited about it. I like this for Sunday Funday, and I'm excited to get into it.
Absolutely. It's going to be one hell of a show. And also joining us today, Ignacio. How are you, Ignacio?
Absolutely great. I got shit everywhere here. I'm working on getting my wrestling room together, but it's coming out pretty good. Let me give you guys, we got those guys up.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
We got these guys over here.
Oh, you got a heck of a display
there. So it's under construction right now. And plus, I'm doing yard work and stuff, but it's coming in pretty nice and doing pretty good. Excited about the show today.
I love
Absolutely. It's going to be a blast. But I'm going to take it to you first, Clark. What is the first thing which you want to lock away in Room 101?
The first thing that I want to lock away in Room 101, and I have held this opinion for a long time, and WrestleMania week really drove it home for me, is especially adult men carrying wrestling belts at live wrestling events. Who are you trying to impress, guys? I mean, you didn't win the big gold belt yourself. You didn't win that spinner yourself. Why are you wearing it around your waist? Why are you holding it over your shoulder? You're not Bailey 2 belts. I don't get it. It's just a lot to carry. It's heavy. And once again, who are you trying to impress? You're not going to get called out and get your shot in the ring. Just watch from the seats like the fan. It's cool to collect belts, but wearing them to the events, man, come on.
Wow, that is certainly quite a controversial take. I mean, it was true. When we went to WrestleMania weekend, we did see quite a few people walking around there. Some of them actually did have 3 belts. Like, you saw some of them with 2 on each shoulder and 1 around their waist. It's like, what are you doing, I guess? But, I mean, Ignacio, what is your take on this?
Yeah, bro. Look, when I buy stuff, things, collectibles, belts, pops, whatever, I buy it with the intention of getting signed. So I'll go to WrestleCon, or I'll go to a signing, and that's the only time I haul my belts around, right? Was to get them signed. But the thing is like Clark said, they're uncomfortable. You got to carry them around, and usually when I get one signed, dude, I got to take it right back to my car, because, or else you're trying to carry it around, not to smudge the signatures and shit, because I get mine signed with paint marker, because that's the best, but it takes a long time to dry. So you're just hauling it around, and they're heavy. Some of them are heavy. Like pretty much the ones you buy on WWE Shop, they're made really well, and they're kind of like, they're not floppy. They're hard. They weigh a lot. So if you got 3 of those things, like you said, 1 on each shoulder and 1 on your waist. I don't know how anybody can enjoy logging that stuff around. So they're uncomfortable. There's kind of a hassle to carry around. I don't know what people get out of carrying them to events. It's something you gotta the seats 18 inches, and then you gotta carry the belt on you all the time. You don't want to put it on the floor because it's gonna get scraped or whatever. Somebody's gonna step on it passing by to go get a hot dog or drink or whatever. So they're kind of like a nuisance of anything else. People holding them up while you're trying to see and stuff. It's just, I got to agree with Clark on this one, even though it's an unpopular take. But I don't, me, Ben, I don't care about
that. You certainly do not mind unpopular takes. And over on YouTube in the comment section, we have Chaos, who is a belt collector, saying facts and calling them fake ass belt collectors. The people who do carry them around at wrestling events. And yeah, truthfully, I've heard both of your opinions on this one. and you both agree with it. And yeah, they do just seem a bit of a hassle to carry around. They haven't won the belt. Why are they acting like they are a champion? And I mean, people joke that, hey, if you take them to a wrestling event, you should have to defend it, which none of them do. So for that reason, I don't really have a lever here, so I'm just going to use this fan and pretend it is. I am putting wrestling fans taking belts to wrestling events in room 101. But we will now head for the second take to Ignacio. Ignacio, what do you want to lock away?
Well, wait a minute. Hold on a second, guys, because I got another screen set up here. You can't see it. I won't divulge the information to you, but if you could, I'm getting something live that's coming in. It says one or maybe both of the Young Bucks are suffering an injury. It says on it's caused by some contusions and abrasions on the upper thighs from continuous strikes. And they may be out for several months. It's fucking leg slapping. And the Young Bucks in general, I think, should be the most phoniest thing that makes everything look phony in wrestling. The main thing is leg slapping. It's not only them. Everybody does it. I'm talking about, you look on both shows, Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Rampage, Dark, Elevation, the Indies. It's plagued with leg slapping. And it's like, bro, I know Michaels did it, but like Shawn Michaels did it to where you barely even noticed it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back and look and his matches, whatever one you want to see against Razor or Brett or whatever, you can barely even tell. It's like Lawler. Like Lawler's regarded as one of the best like punchers in the business ever. But when he punched and they made that slap sound, it's like he does the thing with his shoulder. And if you look at it carefully, like you'll notice it. But I mean, it's like when he made the slap sound, it sounded like he was actually hitting the guy, but he wasn't. But this leg slapping thing, it's egregious. Like guys don't even care or pay attention to where it's on camera anymore, where they actually do it. And I love Kevin Owens, and I love like Sami Zayn, and I love Seth Rollins and all these guys. But dude, it just looks bad. It looks, the product make it look more phony. And I know it's supposed to be like simulated combat, but the more stuff you take out of it where it's not like simulated combat, the more it takes the fans out of it and just reminds everybody, oh yeah, that stuff is fake. And that, I think leg slapping in general is just one of the main contributing factors to turning people off, or fans to like, from keeping them from, how do you call it, suspending disbelief.
Yeah.
Right. There you go. So
yeah,
leg slap.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day in professional wrestling, that is one of the biggest things, which of course, you meant to do. You need to suspend fans' disbelief. And at times, I do agree with you that leg slapping, it does make it seem fake. However, what it does do as well is, I guess it makes it sound like the kicks are a little bit more powerful. On TV, it maybe comes across better. Clark, let's head to you. Let's hear your thoughts on it.
I actually think the most important point that Ignacio made was about Shawn Michaels being kind of the originator of not the first one to do it, but the most effective. When he leg slapped for Sweet Chin Music, you could hardly see it. It sounded like a car accident, and it was absolutely effective. It was awesome, right? It sounded like he kicked their teeth down their throat, like he used to say famously in promos, right? Now, at the same time, I agree with Ignacio that it's gotten out of hand. I think there's far too much leg slapping, a knee strike in the first minute of a match doesn't make sense to me, right? Especially because a knee is not going to make a slapping sound. It's not going to make that noise. In fact, if someone throws a flying knee and it connects, I'll point to Jorge Masvidal and Ben Askren, right? That thud, not the slap, the thud. When it connects, that's the scariest thing, right? With a knee. And so when we're seeing these pump knees, even Sheamus, who I love, I feel bad for him because with the skin tone, you can see the red mark on his own thigh when he does the pump knee and slaps the leg. You can see his handprint on his own thigh. And that stuff bothers me to no end at times. Now, is there time and place for a leg slap? I think when Drew hits a Claymore and hits his leg slap on that Claymore, it sounds better than, we went through that phase during the Thunderdome when he didn't do that and it it wasn't. I don't think the Claymore landed the same as when he did happen to leg slap, but the over. I mean the. To Ignacio's point, and I actually enjoy the Young Bucks probably more than Ignacio, but to his point, when you're doing it 7 or 8 times a match, that's too many times. It just is, and it devalues the audio, right? I joked going into WrestleMania about the triple threat between Sheamus, McIntyre, and Gunther. That's an audio match. Just listen. You could close your eyes and listen to it, and you know that it's stiff between the chops and the strikes and all of that. Maybe we saw a leg slap on a brogue kick. Maybe we saw a leg slap on a Claymore. I know I knocked Sheamus earlier for when he leg slaps the pump knee. I don't think he did so during that match. But there is something to the audio. But I also, at the same time, think it's more effective when it's hardway audio. And if you do it once or twice a match, maybe with the leg slap, I'm okay with it. But it has gotten out of hand in today's wrestling climate.
Yeah, I think that's certainly, perhaps you hit the nail on the head there, that when it's done in very limited circumstances, like Ignacio originally mentioned with Shawn Michaels, a couple of other times as well, with the Claymore, like you mentioned, Clark, it does sound very good and it adds to the move. It makes the move seem more powerful and more deadly, especially with the finishing moves. When it's not a finishing move, or it's something which you're like, well, that wouldn't really make a sound like that, you are questioning it a little bit. Well, that's not realistic. However, when it is a finishing move, it can make it sound more powerful, and if it does suspend your disbelief, then it works. However, when it doesn't work and when it's done excessively, it makes everything sound fake, look fake, and it just makes it sound less effective, I guess. However, I've had a little think about this, and I'm not going to put it in room 101. And the reason for that, I know, Ignacio, I can hear you there. You're not very happy about that. But the reason for it is because I still think that there is a time and place where it should be done. It shouldn't be done excessively, but I think there is a time and place where it should be done. So I'm not going to put leg slaps as a whole in room 101. That is the big controversy.
Well, because I really thought that was going to happen. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
You got to add some spice to it. You got to twist it up a little bit. And I mean,
100%.
listen, when it comes down to it, leg slaps are massively overdone nowadays. However, when they're done well, Shawn Michaels, Drew McIntyre, and there's a few others as well, it really does sound great and it works. So for that reason, it's not going in.
The internal bleeding caused by
but yeah, fair enough. It's not gonna go in room 101. But Clark, what's your next take?
My next one is I can't stand this because they do it every year and it just doesn't seem right. But the brand crossover post draft, please stop with that. Stay on the brand that you get drafted to. Keep them on the right side. Keep them where they've been. I understand there's certain situations where talent may be injured or something, but tell us a story, give us a reason, make a trade, do something like that. Just sending someone to Raw or sending someone to SmackDown because it's convenient devalues the draft every year. I should be looking forward to the draft as an NFL and NBA fan, even Major League Baseball. I watch all 3 of those drafts. My own fantasy football draft, I love the draft. But when you get drafted by the New York Giants, you don't, after 3 weeks, go, I'm going to play for the Jets this week. It's just not, it's not how sports work, and it's not how it should work. And so let's keep everybody who's drafted to SmackDown on SmackDown, everybody who's drafted to Raw on Raw, and write the stories that way. Give us consistency. It'll just make everything easier.
Fair enough. I mean, the one argument, and this is the argument from the networks, is that both networks want certain stars, such as Roman Reigns. And not even just Roman Reigns. There was a few things a couple of years ago where they did the wild card rule. And the reason for that was because networks wanted some superstars who weren't even that high up on the card on their show some weeks, just for it to add a little bit, make shows not feel so repetitive and expected. But Ignacio, what is your thoughts on brand crossover?
Well, I think I mentioned it last week when I had a whole deal as far as like the way how WWE can run the draft if they are committed to making them totally exclusive the draft can be successful if they don't have crossover, if they know how to integrate NXT, if they do better at building stars and making sensible storylines, creating better characters. If they do all the things that they can do, that they have the ability to do, then that shouldn't be an issue. Then there shouldn't have to be any crossover, because they'll be able to work with the talent that they have and create stories for them, do better character building, which they do good. They do know how to do good character building. But you see guys like just recently, like LA Knight, and Karrion Kross, that these guys I think should be featured more on their respective shows, or SmackDown. They're both on SmackDown. But I don't know, it's something with the creative process or what have you, that they're not pushing these stars like they should. But I think the draft is a great opportunity to create new stars, better writing. But to have the draft be successful and the brand split be successful, they can't have all these crossovers just because the network says so. They have to be able to convince the network that they can make stars on their respective shows and give those stars a push, and try to at least bring them to the level of like a Roman Reigns or a Cody or what have you. You know, this Roman Reigns is, like he said in the promos, he's another level, and he really is. And so is Cody. But you have to be able to make new stars to convince the networks to say, hey, we got our brand split. We got exclusive to your networks. These are your stars, and we're going to help build them. That way we don't have to have like Cody flipping on, from show to show, or Sami Zayn or Kevin Owens or the Usos going back and forth. These are the guys who they make. These are the guys you have. These are stars we're going to have on our show, and they have to be able to push those stars like Montez Ford, Jey Uso, and Chad Gable, who I wish they would start pushing to single stars, and I think they are with the brand split. Like, they should have to be able to convince the networks that, like, hey, these are the rosters, these are the guys we're going to push. Give us time, and with effort, we'll be able to create characters and stories to where we won't have to cross over the big main eventers too much. That way we can keep them exclusive.
Well, certainly some very interesting points are pointed out from both of you guys there. However, I am going to, after much debate, I'm gonna very simply get the lever, and I'm gonna put the brand crossovers in room 101, because yes, like Ignacio said, at the end of the day, all you need to do is you need to persuade the networks that the stars they have are going to be built up, and by them staying on that brand instead of them crossing over constantly, it all mucks the entire thing up. Different viewers see different stars, and then it hurts them being built up and all of that. So yes, I agree, putting it in room 101. Now I'm going to bring you both up again quickly, and we're going to look at the Instagram comments very quickly, because I think we got a few comments here. We got firstly we got
a sick plug.
We got Chaos from Take It to the Table saying nothing wrong with bringing one belt to a wrestling show, but multiple is just overdue. Well, unfortunately, Chaos, it's in room 101 now.
I love Chaos, but that does sound like a guy who brought one belt to some wrestling shows this weekend.
Yeah. Can we block him?
I love Chaos.
And also talking about Chaos, he says, #cheap plug. But the latest episode of Take It to the Table is a tier list of the WWE Ruthless Aggression era roster. And it's now available on the Wrestling Republic YouTube channel. So make sure to watch it after Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. Absolutely. Go watch it.
Me, him, and Anthony. And so you got three guys in their 30s talking about an era that they watched live.
And I'm not, I'm not on the show. You need to block him.
Nah, next time we get Ignacio too. Although I actually think you'd like the list, Ignacio. We did a good job.
Man,
we buried we buried the people that deserve to get buried.
Okay, I'll watch it.
I haven't watched it yet either, I'll admit it. But it did air just about an hour ago on the Wrestling Public YouTube channel, so make sure to go and check that out, guys. Once you finish watching this, make sure you carry on watching this first. Don't leave us. But no, absolutely. And I think we've also got the Soul and Ignacio feud continues, as Soul says on the YouTube comments. I suspend my disbelief with listening to Ignacio's opinions.
Soul's a madman. You gotta love it.
He's a hater. The hater of all haters.
He's a madman.
But now let's move on, guys, to the next topic. And Ignacio, I'm heading over to you. What do you next want to put in room 101?
Mine would be not just one thing, not two, but three. Mine would be the New Day. Like all of the New Day and the concept of New Day. No one's been more instrumental to detrimental to the extinction of tag team wrestling, other than the first people I mentioned in my first take or segment or whatever, the Young Bucks, then the New Day. But it's just the thing, bro. It's like, I understand how they tried to appeal to children because they wanted to sell cereal boxes and unicorns and cornflakes or whatever they wanted to do. But well, these children, preteens, or whatever that they entertain throughout the years, it's already been 7-8 years with this gimmick. So, well, these guys are growing up and they want something different, right? And then they've been a comedy gimmick for so long, and throwing the popcorn and riding in with ice cream vendor machines and riding unicorns and pulling pancakes out of their pants and showing their butts or whatever, is when you go back, and if you don't know how to do it right, or if it's not scripted right, from becoming a comedy character into a serious character, nobody's going to take you seriously. And we saw that most recently with Big E, how all these some of the prominent figures in wrestling, Steve Austin, Big Show, Mark Henry, I'll say they'd like to see more out of Big E, but Big E has been portrayed as a goof for so long, and it didn't help with the way he was booked for so many years and the way he was booked to win to the championship, that when it was time to take it seriously, nobody did. Same thing for Kofi and this Kofi Mania stuff. The reason why it didn't work and it didn't draw money is because Kofi's been a goof for 7 or 8 years. And the same thing for Xavier Woods, because I thought Xavier Woods would have been a great heel, because he is good on the microphone and he can work in the ring. But these guys, they choose to be goofy. They choose to have fun and make light of wrestling that it's phony and it's fake by doing all their gimmicky crap to sell more merchandise. So I think wrestling in general, especially tag team wrestling, would be better, would be more fun, would be progressed more today than it has been in year past, or be at the same level without teams like the Young Bucks, or in this case, for this segment, the New Day, because they've been more detrimental to tag team wrestling and their own careers, by the way, and they don't realize it until they finally get to the point where they want to be pushed, like Kofi Kingston and Big E. They were like, well, shit, maybe if I wouldn't do all the goofy shit I've been done for the 7 years, I'd actually still be, Big E would actually probably still be champion, but it's too late. Because you take Santino Marella, he was like the comedy gimmick and he stuck with it. He knew his place in the wrestling business. And Mick Foley was able to be serious and comedy because he's, one of those once in a lifetime talents that can do that and was able to pull it off. But you can't do that with everybody, because not everybody's that special, and the New Day's not that special. So if they actually stuck to being serious, they might be farther along in the wrestling years that they want to be. Kofi Kingston might have had longer than a 6-month run with the WWE title. Big E might have a longer run than a 2-3 months run with the title. So put New Day, all of them, their whole concept, their whole gimmick in Room 101, please.
Wow. I mean, that shouldn't have surprised me, because I know on Take It to the Table, you've gone on a rant about the New Day in the past. But yeah, we have a few comments coming in about this. We've got firstly Chaos from Take It to the Table saying Cap, and saying it's all about merch. They are still big merch sellers. And he's also saying that no, Kofi Mania didn't work because he was given mid-feuds. Now we've got Kid Thompson Media in the comments saying Ignacio's not wrong. That said, they're doing what the boss wants them to do to the best of their ability, and they are getting it over. Do you have anything to say to that, Ignacio?
They're doing what they're told to do?
Yeah.
Is that pretty much the comment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people have enough. I believe that some people have enough equity where they can say, hey, you know what? Let's pump the brakes for a minute and let's just try to do something different. And I think they have built enough equity where they can do that. Not now, but even 2-3 years ago, like Kofi Kingston and Big E was. I think that, hey, let's try to be serious. Let's try to change the waves here. Turn one of us heel, but they chose not to because they were making money selling merchandise and all this stuff, and I realize that's important to business or whatever. But if you're gonna take the wrestling business seriously, and if you want fans to take you seriously, like the traditional wrestling fans that like traditional wrestling, you have to kind of knock that shit off for a while. You know what I mean? But not everybody can do it. Like I said, Foley was one guy who went from comedy to serious, and he went back and forth because he's like once in a lifetime talent that can do that. But you're not going to do that. Like, for example, like I said, with Santino Marella, because he was locked into a comedy gimmick. And if you tried to turn him serious, it wasn't going to work because none of the fans were going to take him seriously. And it's the same. That's what happened with the New Day. That's what happened with Kofi. That's what happened with Big E. That's why Xavier Woods can't do it, because he doubled down and they made him king of the ring and then made him come out with a scepter and crown. And it's, bro, just get rid of these guys. Just please erase them from history.
Well, what about you then, Clark? What are your thoughts?
I hate to do this to Ignacio because I've agreed with so much of what we said before, but boy, do I strongly disagree with this one, man. I'm a huge New Day fan. Personally, I even disagree with a comment Chaos said about the mid-feuds not working. I'm like, look, we can point to numerous babyface champions, Stone Cold Steve Austin. You don't get long reigns. That doesn't mean that they didn't hold the title. That doesn't mean Kofi Mania didn't work. Kofi Mania worked because that building was absolutely electric during the main event with him and Daniel Bryan. It was. The whole building wanted to see Kofi win. I think he's proven himself bell to bell enough times that I can overcome the comedy aspect of the gimmick, because I'll point to another babyface champion in The Rock and remind everybody how much comedy was involved in his mic work and how much comedy was involved in the stuff he did. The Rock concert, This Is Your Life, all of that stuff. There is time and place for that kind of stuff. And not only that, I think if Big E doesn't break his neck, that's a different animal. I thought he did amazing with the new Wale entrance music, back to the clapping with the weight powder. What do you call it? Talc. You know what I mean? All of that for the entrance I thought was outstanding. I think at the end of the day, there is time and place for comedy in wrestling, but they are also the guys that, they're the funny guys that you think, oh yeah, they're just funny and laid back and all the time or whatever. But if you mess with them, the three together is scarier than just one of them. And they all play different roles in the ecosystem that is the New Day, right? You got the enforcer type in Big E. You've got the mic work from both Kofi and Woods, the comedy from Big E and being the louder big dude of the group. And then no matter which of the trio held the tag belts, they were always a force to be reckoned with, especially on the babyface side, which is hard to do. Because if you look at what they did with their tag reigns, they were a babyface that carried the belt with fanfare, which is super difficult to do without getting turned on. That's something you just do not see often. A babyface with a long reign with the tag titles and the crowd doesn't vocally turn on them. I mean, it happened to John Cena. Speaking of people who have comedy involved in their gimmicks, right? It's one of those things where I think the New Day are world-class talents, and to strike the balance that they have over time, while I do understand some of the complaints, Ignacio, about the over-the-top comedy stuff, I think they've struck the balance well enough that they're friendly to a portion of the audience that gets overlooked from time to time, but they're still legit and they're still awesome bell to bell.
We've got a couple of comments coming in. First one we got from Ked Thompson Media saying Clark is spot on. We've also got him saying there, I would like to add in reply to Ignacio's retort that there is no way to know who has creative sway with the boss, and if anything, the comedy gimmick and the fact that it is pushing merch hard is more of a reason for the boss to say no to other creative options for them. And also, Chaos is saying, please protect Clark. But I've got my lever here, right, guys? And I'm not going to put the New Day in room 101. I mean, come on, they've done so much for wrestling at the end of the day. And yes, I do agree with you at times it's being over the top. They've sold a lot of merch. They've gotten a lot of people interested in wrestling. They've done some mainstream crossover, which is not many people are doing nowadays, let's be honest about it. And also Kofi Mania, at least until he won the title, was a fantastic storyline that I truly did love. Now, I do also think you made some great points, Ignacio, but I'm not going to put the New Day in room 101.
Well, I think Clark and Chaos should go to room 101.
Oh, no.
Oh, gosh.
Man.
But up next, we're going to ask you, Clark, what are you next going to try and put in room 101?
I'm super excited about this one because I've been passionate about it for years. And I want to make sure I get it right on how I'm pitching this. But calling the secondary men's weight class either cruiserweight or light heavyweight has to stop. As a combat sports fan across the board, cruiserweights are 200 pounds. Cruiserweights are 200 pounds in boxing, and light heavyweights in MMA are 205 pounds. John Jones was a light heavyweight champion. Rey Mysterio is a cruiserweight, and Finn Balor is a cruiserweight. He's 165 pounds. That's a welterweight. In MMA, it's a middleweight in boxing. You gotta come up with a scale or a system or something. But to describe someone as a cruiserweight's a big person. A cruiserweight is one notch below a heavyweight. That's the next biggest you can be besides being a heavyweight in any other combat sport. And it's bugged me for my whole life. I know it's a bit out of left field, but both the light heavyweight and the cruiserweight thing kills me. Call them welterweights, call them middleweights. I don't know. Something else that actually describes the weight class itself, if we're going to do it. Stop calling people that couldn't gain enough weight to be a cruiserweight. Cruiserweights. Logan Paul can't get big enough to make cruiserweight. He's 190 pounds. He's 10 pounds lighter. He's not even big enough to be a cruiserweight. Stop calling them cruiserweights. That's not what it is. And it totally bugs me. And it always has, but it's funny. I know it's out of left field. But what do you guys think?
Wow. I mean, fair enough. Those are some... that is not one which I saw come in, to be honest with you, but a very interesting point, and I've got a couple of things I want to quickly add to it. Firstly, I mean, in fairness, Finn Balor's 195 pound and Logan Paul's 230 pound.
Listen to that, not even close.
Still. I mean, who knows?
They had to have an official weigh-in for the Floyd Mayweather fight. He was 190 pounds.
That is correct. That's
the WWE
correct,
calling him 230 is a bolstered. That's a bolstered weight. If he's 230, then I'm 260, dude.
Fair enough, but yeah, that is his. Well, what WWE are now claiming, because they've claimed that he's put on 34 pounds since the Floyd Mayweather WWE bragged about before. But the second point that I wanted to add to what you were saying about is that this is actually quite interesting. I actually, for the longest time, because of wrestling, actually thought that a cruiserweight was below 205 pounds because I grew up, I didn't grow up watching Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. That was slightly before my time. But as a kid, I went back and watched those matches. And because of that, when I later got into combat sports, that's what I thought a cruiserweight was. I was shocked. It confused me. For the longest time, the MMA weight divisions and even boxing weight divisions really confused me because of this. And it always did make me wonder, why did WWE and WCW and all of wrestling do it so different? But Ignacio, I'm going to head to you now. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I did something like this on Take It to the Table. How if they really wanted to, they could kind of make it work as far as like a cruiserweight division, light heavyweight division. But you know, whoever did it, WWE, AEW, or both, would just have to be kind of really committed to it. But the thing is, if you do it, then you kind of limit your roster as far as like pigeonholing certain guys to the cruiserweight division, guys like Finn Balor and you know, like Dominic Mysterio, Rey Mysterio. Like you pigeonhole them to one division where they can only chase like the light heavyweight title, for example, and then you got to try to kind of like elevate that championship to the same level as the WWE heavyweight championship, right? It's kind of like in MMA and boxing. After a while, like the heavyweight title just became insignificant because of the poor talent that they have them involved in the top of the card. As far as the heavyweight division, the lighter weights were starting to take the more of the pay-per-view main events and stuff like that. Floyd Mayweather and Canelo and all that
McGregor.
stuff. So
I mean,
I think
yeah.
So I think like Bischoff had the right formula in WCW when he started highlighting these guys. But I think what maybe he could have done is if he would have elevated them from the opening match, which there's nothing wrong with being in the opening match, but if he would have started pouring more significance on Jericho, Malenko, Ultimo Dragon, Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, like those guys, and started featuring them like on top of the card, slowly build to where you can elevate the cruiserweight division and championship to be as important as the WWE championship, I think eventually they would have gotten more recognition and more inclined to stay. But as far as and there's always been crossover where all of a sudden you see a cruiserweight guy challenging for the world heavyweight title, and that didn't make things any better. But as far as calling a guy a cruiserweight and welterweight, there's no divisions anymore. So I don't think they should be. I kind of agree with Clark as far as they shouldn't be calling so-and-so a cruiserweight or welterweight when they're not even within that weight range or whatever. I don't know how much they say. I don't know how much they say Bryan Danielson weigh. Danielson's not a heavyweight.
Yeah, not even close.
Not even. Yeah, he's 185 or something. Or I don't know.
I mean, that's a big 185. Isn't he only 5'10"? I would guess 170, almost for Danielson.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna have to agree with
weigh him as now. Let's have a look. He weighs 210 according to AW.
Yeah, dude, wrestling weights are inflated, man. They've been billing Brock at 290 for years, and we watch him weigh in at 265 at UFC events. It's okay.
Anyway, I agree with Clark.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've seen for years wrestling weights often have been inflated. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think the Daniel Bryan one actually might be correct. Because there is a video, but then again, they've done it before where they've changed scales and stuff. That's nothing too new. But yeah, at the end of the day, Clark, cruiserweight and light heavyweight, the terms in wrestling just don't make sense. So for that reason, I'm going to put the terms cruiserweight and light heavyweight in professional wrestling in room 101. I'm going to do it. So there you are, Clark. All three of your takes have made it into room 101 today.
Did it.
But Ignacio, let's head to you now for the final take of the day.
Well, my final take, that you all have heard it from time and time again, especially on Take It to the Table. And even before that, when I had the show with Meeks. As a matter of fact, it was my very first article that I wrote for Wrestling Republic. I think Chris Jericho should go in room 101 because I don't think anybody has been more detrimental to the wrestling business probably in the past 3 to 4 years than Chris Jericho. He hasn't brought anything of significance to the table since 6 months after he lost the AEW World Title to Jon Moxley. He leeches off of anybody he can. He hasn't made or built anybody. And I'm talking about Sammy Guevara. I'm talking about Santana and Ortiz. I'm talking about Jake Hager. I'm talking about whoever else is in the Daniel Garcia. He's not elevating anybody. I'm talking about Ricky Starks. I'm talking about MJF. Everybody who feuded with Jericho is either in the same spot they're at or lower on the card. Santana and Ortiz, but we really don't know what happens with backstage drama and all that. But according to even Conan said it on his pod, they don't even before Santana got hurt, they weren't talking to each other. Sammy Guevara is in the same spot, even lower now, just getting elevated to a main event position, but he really shouldn't be there because he's not really over. He's got, in my opinion, go away heat. Ricky Starks is even lower than he was before after feuding with Jericho, if not maybe in the same spot, but he's no more over than when he was with the feud with Jericho. MJF was already over, but he wasted a year with Jericho, so he just stayed stagnant for a little bit. Now he's the world champion, but that wasn't because of Jericho. Who else? FTR shows up in AEW. Then all of a sudden, Jericho enters into the tag team with Sammy Guevara. Now he wants a piece of FTR. Now there's here of CM Punk coming in. Now it's all Jericho forgives everything that he said about CM Punk because he's probably coming in and he's the hottest thing that's ever been in AEW. And the ratings will show that. Now he wants to throw his hat into maybe throwing with CM Punk. So Jericho's just leeching on it for everybody just so he can stay relevant. It's really sad. It saddens me because I really did like Chris Jericho's work at one point, but it saddens me to see just like kind of how pathetic he's become and the careers that he's affecting along the way. I think he definitely should be in room 101.
Wow. I mean, of course, that was your first article you wrote for WrestlingRepublic.com back in the day. And it was actually, at the time, a very, very... The viewerships for that article, I think it was still one of the highest, one of the most viewed articles on the website because it blew up on Reddit. Reddit were going nuts about it all. A lot of people were complaining about it and all of that. Some people agreed. But Clark, what are your thoughts? And do you think Chris Jericho should be thrown away and put in room 101?
I was so ready to agree with this one with Ignacio, and then he said what he said, and no, it's Chris Jericho, man. He's a Hall of Famer, and not only that, like, in that time, I've been to the few shows. He still gets the huge reception from the fans. I thought his work with Danielson was overlooked. It's set up perfectly for his ROH title run. It's set up perfectly for Danielson's run at MJF, which I think was MJF's best rivalry to date, actually, arguably, given what happened in the hour match. It was he really proved something that I don't know how else you could have proved MJF's bell to bell acumen than putting him out there for an hour with Brian. I don't think we need to get rid of Chris Jericho, not anytime soon, at least. Maybe more commentary work, because I think he's great there.
Wow, okay, so Clark does not think Chris Jericho should go into room 101. And listen, Ignacio, I do see what you're saying. Sammy Guevara, I'm going to be honest, I don't think him being involved with Chris Jericho's elevated him at all. In fact, I do think it's actually put him on a downhill spiral, to be honest with you. His career has become stagnant, and he's just become a Chris Jericho lackey, for lack of a better term. But Chris Jericho helped MJF be seen by more people. Yes, the feud ended up becoming stagnant as well. And yes, at times, I think Chris Jericho kind of has, in the last couple of years, slightly leached off a few people. But in the last year or so, he's actually had some fantastic matches. He's been quite entertaining on AEW television, and he's also helped a lot of people get over. He really helped Orange Cassidy, and I know, Ignacio, both of us aren't really huge Orange Cassidy guys at all, but the truth of the matter is he did help Orange Cassidy get over, and he's brought more, I say mainstream eyes, that's not mainstream, but more casual wrestling fans' eyes onto multiple AEW talent. So for that reason, I'm not going to put Chris Jericho in room 101. And Ignacio, I can see you're not very happy there.
Of course not. Of course you're not. Everybody on this channel is a Chris Jericho mark, except for me.
I am. I'll admit it, though, at least, Ignacio. So you got to respect that, right? I'll be the first to say it. I've been a Chris Jericho mark since I was a little kid.
And I mean, we got Kid Thompson in the comments saying 2 words, Action Andretti.
Great
And
point.
that's another one who he has got over, technically.
Yeah.
Oh,
another
gosh.
flip-flop fly artist and somersaults and all that. You know, that was going to be one of my 3. Like the spot because, bro, in a perfect example was look what happened to Dante Martin a few weeks ago. It wasn't a flip or whatever, but it was a high spot, and it's just that was bad.
No, I do understand that, and that is certainly a conversation for another day. But thank you guys for listening. We're basically at the end of the podcast now, whether you're listening on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening to us. Thank you for watching us. If you're on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, subscribe button, all of that good stuff. If you're on Spotify, give us 5-star rating and a follow. It really, really helps us. Share it with your friends. We'll be back here tomorrow, I believe, an hour later tomorrow, where we'll be joined by both Soul and Anthony, as they've got a couple of things that they want to discuss together on Mailbag Monday. But thank you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.